Yep, it just started.
Just started. Okay, perfect. Is there a like confirmation on that? I can't see where it says that.
Yeah, it shows it on mine. We're 10 seconds under.
All right, great. All right, and then Jeff, if you want to go ahead and get started.
Okay, good evening. Welcome to the June 3rd meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals. My name is Jeff Nye. I'll serve as your chair of the Board of Zoning Appeals tonight. Due to the declared state of emergency in the nation, in Ohio, and in the township, and the order of the Director of the Ohio Department of Health issued March 12th, 2020, in response to the COVID-19 emergency, this meeting is being convened telephonically. The agenda for today's meeting is available on our website, www.andersontownship.org. Click on Board of Zoning Appeals under the upcoming events to review information for case 9-2021 BZA and case 10-2021 BZA. I think we have a third case on our agenda. It was a 3-2020, PJ, is that right?
So we had the applicant for that case submitted a requested modification. So we can go over that with the approval of the agenda.
Okay, and I think that's case 3. Anyway, the website, www.andersontownship.org, click on Board of Zoning Appeals. The board will accept public testimony via phone or video during the hearing for tonight's cases. Before public testimony is provided, I will read an oath, and you must swear in before speaking. We ask that all participants mute their phones and only unmute if speaking. If you're going to speak, please state your name and address before you're sworn. It's also helpful to speak directly into your phone as opposed to using the speaker feature, something that I am not doing right now. At each of our meetings, we encourage the attendees to complete a sign-in sheet, including their name and address. If at some point during or after the meeting you'd like to sign in electronically, please send an email to bbowers@andersontownship.org. That's bbowers@andersontownship.org. Before the meeting begins, I'd like to identify the appointed Board of Zoning Appeals members that are participating in this meeting, including Jeff Nye, myself. Paul Shekels is our vice chair. Steve Haber, John Halpin, and Paul Sion. Our alternates here today, I think I saw Scott Lawrence, an alternate, is here.
And then Amy was not able to make it this evening.
Right, and Amy is not here. Okay. Other personnel joining the meeting via phone include PJ Ginty, Planner 1, and Sarah Donovan, Planner 2. Each of us will do our best to remember to state our name before speaking so that those who are following along by phone can follow along. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your patience. This meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals is hereby called to order. The board was established pursuant to Section 519.13 of the Ohio Revised Code by the Anderson Township Board of Trustees to provide administrative relief to any person or entity adversely affected by the Anderson Township zoning resolution. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Shekels?
Here.
Mr. Sion?
Here.
Mr. Haber?
Here.
Mr. Halpin?
Present.
Mr. Nye?
Here. Thank you for attending this teleconference meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals. Please be aware that this meeting is being recorded. Now I'll outline our procedures. A summary of the appeal is presented by staff, and the appellant will present its case after being sworn in. The board members may then ask questions of the appellant. After that, all persons supporting the appeal will be permitted to testify one at a time after being sworn in and recognized. When those persons supporting the appeal are finished, those opposed to the appeal will then be permitted to testify and or ask questions of the board after being sworn in and recognized. If there's anyone who'd like to be heard but isn't necessarily for or against, we'll hear those folks with those opposed. Okay, are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
Yeah, so Mr. Nye, this is PJ Ginty. We did have a late addition to the agenda. This agenda was revised on June 1st, so Tuesday. So there was an email request from the applicant for case 3, 2020 BZA. So we have added that to the agenda as item number 7 to be discussed at the end of the meeting this evening.
That's 3-2020, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, we need the board to approve that agenda amendment, I guess.
Correct.
Can we approve that by unanimous consent? Is there any objection from the board to adding case 3-2020 as agenda item number 7? Hearing no objection, that amendment is added. And so now I'd ask for unanimous consent to approve the agenda as amended. Is there any objection from the board? None. Okay, the agenda is approved as amended. Moving on to the next agenda item is approval of the minutes for the May 6th, 2021 meeting. Are there any changes to the minutes?
Mr. Go ahead,
Hey,
Steve.
here. I did submit some revisions earlier today.
Okay.
And staff has made those revisions. So the board can approve those minutes as amended by Mr. Haber, unless there were any other changes to the minutes from last month.
Do you want to tell us what the amendments are
Sure,
so we can approve them?
Sure, yeah, sorry about that. So we had there was a holdover from the January meeting that made its way into there. So that was removed from the minutes. And then I believe another typo that was in there as well.
Okay, perfect.
Steve, correct me, was that?
That's it. There were 2.
Yeah, okay. All right. Can we have unanimous consent of the board to approve the minutes as amended? Any objection? Hearing none, the minutes are approved as amended. Okay, the third item on our agenda is consideration of case 9. Before we get to that, can we have staff sworn, please?
Mhm.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, agenda item number 3 is consideration of case 9-2021 BZA, which is a variance request to allow a 6-foot-high privacy fence in the front yard where only 6-foot-high privacy fences. Only 6-foot-high privacy fences are permitted in the rear yard. The property located at 752 Pickwick Drive. Will staff please
Thank you,
present case number 9?
Thank you. This is PJ Ginty with Anderson Township Planning and Zoning. Before you tonight is case 9, 2021 BZA, and the applicant is Casey White on behalf of Michelle White, who is the property owner at 752 Pickwick Drive. And this is a request to allow a 6-foot-high privacy fence in the front yard area of a double frontage lot. So the applicant has proposed to construct a 6-foot-high wooden privacy fence in the southern front yard area of their double frontage lot. And this fence would be located adjacent to Woodruff Road. The proposed fence is proposed to be 192 feet in length and set back approximately 20.5 feet from Woodruff Road and run adjacent to the applicant's southern property line. The proposed fence would replace an existing 4-foot-high chain link fence that is set back about 17 feet from Woodruff Road. Article 5.2A9 of the zoning resolution states that fences may not exceed 4 feet in height and have to be at least 75% open if they're going to be located in their front and side yard areas. Additionally, 6-foot-high privacy fences are only permitted in the rear yard of a property. However, on double frontage lots, 6-foot-high privacy fences are allowed outside of the required front yard setback. And that's per Article 3.5 C2I of the zoning resolution. So in this case, with it being B zoning, the required front yard setback from Woodruff Road is 35 feet. and not from Woodruff Road, from the property line, 35 feet from the property line. The house was built in 1971, and the current property owner purchased the property in August of 2020. In April 2021, staff received a complaint about a 4-foot high privacy fence located in the front yard area along Woodruff Road. And that was due to a tarp being placed over the existing 4-foot high chain link fence. So the property owner notified staff about their intent to apply for a variance to allow a 6-foot high privacy fence. And upon that application, the property owner removed the tarp from the existing 4-foot high chain link fence. This is a property map showing the property. So as you can see over here, it's a double frontage lot in that it has frontage on both Woodruff Road and Pickwick Drive. So it's only access, and I'll go over to the aerial here. It does not currently have access from Woodruff Road. Their only access is off of Pickwick Drive here on their northern property area. There are a few different trees in this area, and again, the existing 4-foot high chain link fence. This is the topography map of the property. So there's a decrease in grade from east to west, mostly flat in the center and southeast portion of the property. Here's the proposed site plan. So currently the existing 4-foot tall chain link fence is approximately 17 feet from the edge of pavement at Woodruff Road. Now, judging off of Cagis's maps and the applicant's submittal, the right-of-way extends approximately 17 feet from their property line to the edge of pavement of Woodruff Road. The applicant in this instance has decided to propose the fence to be located 20.5 feet from the street, so about 3.5 feet from the existing property line on the southern edge of the property there. Again, the fence length is proposed to be 192 feet. This is an image looking at the neighboring property to the east along Woodruff Road. This is 760 Pickwick Drive. And this is looking at the property itself, 752 Pickwick Drive. This is looking towards the north from Sanker Lane. As you can see, there's a 4-foot tall. You can see the 4-foot tall chain link fence. This is looking towards the west. We got Woodruff Road over here on the left-hand side, the existing residence here on the right-hand side, and the chain link fence here in the front of the picture. This is looking at the property looking towards the north. So you can see the existing residence and the existing chain link fence. This is looking towards the south from Pickwick Drive and the applicant's side yard area of their property. Staff is of the opinion that the variance could be substantial. The proposed 6-foot high privacy fence would be 2 feet higher than the allowable height in a front yard, and that's per Article 5.2A9. Additionally, a privacy fence would not meet the standard of more than 75% open, also set forth in Article 5.2A9. The fence is also proposed to be located only 3.5 feet from the property line, where 35 feet is required since this is a double frontage lot. The essential character of the neighborhood could be altered, and adjoining properties could suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. The proposed fence will be set back 20.5 feet from Woodruff Road. However, fences that are over 4 foot high, less than 75% open, are still prohibited in front yards. The variance would not adversely affect the delivery of governmental services. The property owner's predicament can be feasibly obviated through some method other than a variance. The property owner could construct a 6-foot high privacy fence as long as it met a 35-foot front yard setback from the southern property line. In addition, the applicant could also construct a 4-foot high, 75% open fence anywhere on the property. The applicant could also place landscaping in lieu of a privacy fence along that southern portion of the property line. However, the 35-foot required setback would limit the amount of space in the applicant's southern portion of their property. And staff is of the opinion that the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would not be observed by granting the variance based on the height and style of the proposed fence, the distance of the proposed fence from Woodruff Road, and the minimal setback from the southern property line. These are the standards to be considered, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board has.
Thank you. Mr. Shuckles, do you have any questions for staff?
Not at this time.
Mr. Sion,
No questions, thanks.
Mr. Haber?
I do have one, and that is, it appears to me that the property to the east has a fence along the way. And is there a zoning certificate for that? Or can you give us some additional information about that fence? It was on one of your slides.
Slide 9 has the photo of it.
Hey, PJ, you're muted.
Come on, BJ.
How did I mute myself? So let me go back to that slide there. So we do have an approved zoning certificate on file for this fence. So this was approved back in September of 1992. And based on the drawing that was provided to staff from the applicant, the applicant did not show Woodruff Road on their site plan. So therefore staff wouldn't have had a way to determine that was a required front yard area as well. So when it was approved back in 1992, we did not have cages. So that's the explanation that I have for the fence over at 760 Pickwick Drive.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
1992, did you say?
That's correct.
Did they have cars in 1992? Would they not have driven out there?
So if it was still the same policy, we only do inspections on a complaint-based approach. So if there was not a complaint about it, we would not have inspected the fence.
Okay, so the zoning certificate was issued in 1992, but if the same package were submitted today showing Woodruff Road, it would have been denied because it was front yard and they would have had to apply for a variance.
That's correct.
Okay.
I'm looking at, and please explain to me how that, looking at the aerial shot, how that qualifies as a front yard on that property.
Sure. And let me pull up the aerial as well. There we go. Yeah, so based on our zoning resolution, any property that has frontage on a public street or a private drive that has access to 3 or more homes, that's considered an area that we would need a front yard setback off of. So currently the property owner, while not having access, they do front Woodruff Road and the right of way to Woodruff Road. And then obviously they have their driveway coming off of Pickwick Drive as well.
So the 760 property would be the same definition.
That's correct. They would need to meet a required front yard setback from this point forward to their residence. So they would need to meet a 35-foot front yard setback off of Woodruff Road, off of the property line there.
So Haber again here. So this property, if I'm understanding you correctly, has 2 front yards and then a side yard on either side, and there's no rear yard.
That's correct. So for instance here, the applicant does have a shed on their property, but because it's located out of the required front yard 35-foot setback, that's where it's in a permitted location because of that rule. So you don't lose, if you have a double frontage lot, you don't lose the ability to have a rear yard essentially, and then the rights that come with having a rear yard. It just needs to meet that required front yard setback.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Shekels, any additional, I'm sorry, we didn't get to Mr. Halpin. Mr. Halpin, do you have any questions?
No, none at all.
All right, Mr. Shekels, any additional questions?
No.
Mr. Sion, any additional questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. No additional questions from me. Will the appellant or the appellant's representative please unmute yourself, speak into your phone or microphone, and state your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Casey White, and I live at 4532 Forest Avenue.
Okay, can you please raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Okay, please tell us anything you'd like to tell us about this.
Cool. Well, yeah, thank you for having us today. I am the daughter of Michelle White, who lives at 752 Pickwick. And would just like to go through the 7 criteria that a zoning variance needs to meet and state our case for that. So the first criteria is whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return or whether there could be any beneficial use of the property without the variance. So following staff guidelines to have that fence 35 feet back from the property line would essentially render her rear yard useless because there would only be 7 feet of yard space left in the rear, which is basically where that shed that we just saw is located, is about 7 feet from the house. So that would greatly reduce her value of her property if she's not able to really use the backyard if she had the fence there. That also, if she had a 75% transparent fence, there wouldn't be any blockage from noise or speeding cars or lights. And with increased development in the area, that is leading to more traffic and noise. And her house is about 600 feet from 275, so there's added noise from that. And it just overall reduces her enjoyment of her yard, not having any privacy back there. So this fence would protect her investment in the home that she bought just last August. So the second point is that the essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered, or whether adjoining properties would suffer a detriment as a result of the variance. And so, as we saw in the aerial images, the houses on either side of her either have the fence from 1992, or on the other side, they're at 759 Pickwick. The back property line has trees and thickets and other landscaping that prevents view of the house. And so it would seem that putting a privacy fence in line with those other fences and trees would actually continue the character of the neighborhood. It would be in line with it. And as I said, if it was 35 feet in from the property line, it would actually be out of line with
Everyone other than Ms. White, please mute their microphones. I'm getting a lot of feedback here.
Yeah, me too.
PJ, it's from your laptop. I muted you. So I'm going to have to request to unmute you when it's time to speak again.
Okay, thank you. And so since this is technically zoned a front yard because it's has the double frontage, it doesn't really meet, it's not in character with a front yard. There's no sidewalks on Woodruff Road that would have access to that yard from there. There's no homes directly across from her house on Woodruff Road that face her house. There, none of the new homes in the new subdivision at the enclaves at Woodruff, which is right across from her, none of those homes face her house or will face her house. And so the character of the houses on that side of the street and across from her are not in character with front yards. And we also have a list of 11 property owners that we've spoken with on Pickwick, on Woodruff, and on Sandecker that believe that this variance would not be a detriment to them. I believe some of them may be here to speak tonight as well. So if we haven't addressed a character of the neighborhood that would be altered or there would be a detriment to, we'd be happy to hear what that is. Number 3 is the variance is substantial. It's our opinion that this variance is not substantial because this is not a true front yard for the reasons I just mentioned. And it's really an unusual circumstance for the township. We went through an aerial view of the township trying to find other cul-de-sacs that abut up to a street like this, and we're only able to find a few of them. And the ones that we were able to find were significantly further back from the street than her property is. None of them had a street running so close to it with no large trees or any kind of barrier in between there. So since this is such a rare occurrence and an unusual lot, the typical zoning ordinance may not apply in this situation. Then number 6 is the property owner's predicament can be feasibly obviated through some other method than a variance. And so the zoning staff did provide us with some alternatives, but those are not feasible alternatives. The 35-foot setback, like I said, would essentially leave her with a 7-foot backyard, which doesn't allow her to have any significant use of her backyard. The 4-foot high, 75% open fence, which is currently allowed by zoning, doesn't alleviate the issue she's trying to overcome with the fence. Those would be overall privacy, just from being able to enjoy your backyard without someone staring into it from that new development across the street, or people walking by. There's a sidewalk that a newer sidewalk that comes close to her property but doesn't actually pass in front of it. Cars speed very fast on Woodruff Road, and since her property is so close to the road, that's a lot of noise and speeding cars. And the street, this is a good image to show that the street that is right across from her, that's Sandecker Lane, is part of the Enclaves development. Yeah. So because there's a stop sign there so cars can exit. So when cars come to that stop sign from the new development, their headlights are shining directly into her kitchen. So a 75% open fence would not allow her to, that wouldn't block that. Since the enclaves at Woodruff are not completed yet, there's still more units being developed. There's a lot of construction going on over there, and trucks coming in and out with cement and dirt and materials. So it just is not enjoyable to be in her backyard, as I'm over there a lot. The other option that staff gave was having landscaping in lieu of a 6-foot fence, but it takes a long time to grow trees or landscaping that would grow to the height to block this noise and these lights from the from cars and the speeding traffic. She actually did plant rows of Sharon all along that fence when she moved in August. She's an avid gardener. But they've only grown so much in a year, and it will take many years for that to reach the height that it would actually provide some barrier there. And that also wouldn't be applicable in the winter when trees lose their leaves, and wouldn't provide that visual barrier. And lastly, the spirit and intent behind zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance. And so I looked up that the purpose of the zoning code is to promote the health, safety, morals, comfort, general welfare of those in Anderson Township. And so I firmly believe a fence would promote her safety and her comfort from noise, speeding traffic, and headlights. And it would protect her property value and the investment that she's made in this neighborhood. And that was a lot, but I appreciate you guys hearing of what we have to say, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. That was a very detailed presentation. We appreciate that. Mr. Shekels, do you have any questions for Ms. White?
Not at this time.
Mr. Sion?
No, thank you.
Mr. Haber?
I do have one. Ms. White, there was part of the staff report that indicated that a tarp had been added to the existing chain link fence. Can you tell me what the purpose of that was?
Right. So purpose of that was just to alleviate some of the issues that I was talking about with the noise and the visual, just of like the headlights, and just having a tarp there kind of made it seem a little more private and a little more like a real backyard. Yeah, well, once we found out that that was not allowed, we did remove it before applying for this variance.
Okay, thank you. No more further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Halpin, any questions?
No questions.
I do have a question, Ms. White. You said you looked around and you weren't able to identify too many other places that had this arrangement where the subdivision backs up unusually close to the road behind it. And I think that's probably right, but a couple of them are right there on Woodruff, right? Like the next street over is Kingswood, and it has the same sort of thing going on, and then Wismar farther down. So I guess one of the things I'm thinking about is if we grant this variance, is there some limiting principle that would make it easy for us to say no if the house at the end of Kingswood or Wismar wanted a similar variance? I don't know if you have an answer to that. If you don't, that's fine. That's something for us to think about. But if you have any thoughts on that, I'd love to hear them.
I do. I think the idea of having, your front yard being your front yard, which is really her backyard, being able to see into it would be more applicable if there was a sidewalk that went in front of her house, or if it was a more pedestrian friendly area where there are people walking by and not just cars speeding by at, very fast. I think if it was more walkable, and I know there have been sidewalk additions added to the neighborhood, which has been great, but so maybe that would be something to consider, is how walkable the street is that the double frontage lot is on.
Thank you. And I guess the complement to that is that the subdivision does kind of back up directly to her house too. So she's getting headlights into her backyard, front yard, back door, that those other streets probably aren't getting. Okay,
right, exactly.
Let's go around the horn one more time. Mr. Shekels, any follow-up questions based on anything you heard?
No, thank you.
Mr. Sion?
No, thank you.
Mr. Haber?
No, thank you.
Mr. Halpin?
No questions.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. White. Stick around for a little bit if you would. Is there anyone else on the line who'd like to speak in support of the appellant in case 9-2021? If so, please unmute yourself and identify yourself.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me
Who's
okay?
that?
My name is Terrence Weiss, W-E-I-S-S, and I'm Michelle White's next door neighbor at 760 Pickwick.
Okay, Mr. Weiss, would you please raise your right hand to be sworn?
Absolutely.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do, sir.
Okay, please tell us anything you'd like to tell us.
Okay, concerning the fence that Michelle is proposing to put up, personally, the comments that were made, they would be a detriment to the property and the neighborhood. As a next door neighbor, I've lived here 20 years, and I would not have a problem with that fence being there. In fact, my house is the one that's got the zoning variance for a privacy fence in 1992 that I'm currently repairing because it got damaged in a storm. And hopefully I'll have that finished here in about a month, putting the existing fence that was there back up with replacement stuff. But she's absolutely right about the lights, especially with the new subdivision, the Enclave took place. And also, Woodruff has kind of become, in the last 20 years, a drag strip. And so you've got motorcycles and cars come flying by through the area. Almost like to ask the police to kind of sit out there and clock some of these people. But also with the highway noise from 275 has increased since putting in the enclaves, because they took out a lot of the trees, which were natural sound barriers. And what's happened is the sound walls, deadening walls that I guess the state put in down on 275, all they do really is they ricochet the sound up the hill and into our backyard. So anything you can do to try to muffle noise is, to me, a benefit to the property. And also, Michelle's got a couple of dogs that if she has a privacy fence, she could make sure that her dogs don't escape and get out on the road and get hit. So to me, I'm in total support of her project. I still don't understand how her backyard is considered a front yard just because it's up against Woodruff Road. To me, the front yard is where the front door is. So for her to enjoy her backyard in a better way, if it means putting up a privacy fence, as far as I'm concerned, I'm 100% supportive of it.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Mr. Shekels, do you have any questions for Mr. Weiss?
Not at this time.
Mr. Sion? Mr. Sion, do you have any questions
Sorry,
for Mr.
no,
White?
not at this time. Thanks.
Mr. Haber?
None, thank you.
Mr. Halpert?
No questions.
And none from me either. Thank you, Mr. Weiss. We appreciate your testimony. Is there anyone
Thank
else
you.
on the line who would like to speak in support of the appellant in case 9-2021 BZA?
Yes,
Michelle
I do.
White.
Okay, I've got two. I think I've got Eileen and I'm not sure who the other one was. Was
Michelle
that
White.
Michelle White? Let's. You're the property owner, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Let's hear from you first. Will you please state your name and address for the record?
Michelle White, 752 Pickwick Drive.
I guess we could have figured that out. I'm sorry. Please raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, please tell us anything you'd like to tell us.
Just that I was very grateful and excited to get this home in August of the worst year of my life. I moved my home and my business to Anderson. I have a science outreach business. And I had hoped and planned to use my backyard to do some of the videos I shoot for my elementary science outreach business that I've had for over 20 years, visited Forest Hill schools 3 times. I understand that, communities need development, and it's just, you'd have to be here to understand the amount of traffic. Last week, there was a day where there was 4 different dump trucks hauling loads of dirt, and there must have been at least 30 or more trips in and out. And again, I understand about development, but I'm just hoping the township can work with me so that that development can exist while not, making my property not really what I thought it was when I first came here. And, obviously in August of COVID, you saw a home and you bid on it immediately, and there wasn't tons of time to research this phenomena of a double frontage lot or anything like that. So I'm just praying that the township can work with me so that this fence can add to my love of this new home and also make it a lot better for the neighbors and everything. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shekels, any questions for Ms. White?
Not at this time.
Mr. Sion,
No, thank you.
Mr. Haber,
None, thank you.
Mr. Halpin? Okay, none from me either. All right, I know there's at least one other person. I saw an Eileen who'd like to speak in support. Is that right?
Yes, thank you. My name is Eileen Jelson. I live at 768 Pickwick. That is just one house removed from Michelle White's home.
Okay, will you please raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, please tell us anything you'd like to tell us.
Okay, so, I've been here for a while, and I was not in favor of the zoning variance that permitted the enclaves at Woodruff. It did change the character of our neighborhood in a negative way, causing significant light, sound, air pollution, and the loss of green space and wildlife and increased traffic. I am, however, very much in favor of Michelle's proposal for a fence. It's going to help alleviate some of those issues, not just for her, but for me. We see the halogen lights from the new neighborhood. My front yard is lit up like it's Christmas. The cars going by, we hear the car noise. We hear the noise from 275. So I am not just in favor, but I am looking forward to your approval of her appeal and her consideration for this variance, because it is not a detriment to our neighborhood. It's actually an improvement. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shekels, any questions for the witness?
Not at this time.
Mr. Sion?
No, thank you.
Mr. Haber?
None, thank you.
Mr. Halpin?
No questions.
Okay, none from me either. Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else on the line who'd like to speak in support of the appellant in case 9? If there's anyone else who'd like to speak in support of the appellant in case 9-2021, this is a request for a 6-foot-high privacy fence at 752 Pickwick. Please unmute yourself and let us know. Last call. Is there anyone else on the line who'd like to speak in support of the appellant in case 9, 752 Pickwick Drive? Okay, I'm hearing none. Is there anyone on the line who'd like to speak in opposition to the request for a variance in case 9, which is 752 Pickwick Drive? Please unmute yourself and let us know. Anyone who'd like to speak in opposition to case 9, 752 Pickwick Drive? Last chance. Anyone like to be heard either way as to 752 Pickwick? Okay, hearing none, I think that's all the witnesses. Is there a motion from the board to close the public testimony on case 9?
Mr. Chair, Haber here. I do have one other question for the appellant, if I may.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead. I assume you mean Ms. Casey White, is that right?
Yeah, Ms. White. And my
I've got 2 Ms. Whites is the thing.
Oh, Ms. Casey White, please. Because the new proposed location of the fence is 3.5 feet closer to the house than the existing chain link fence, what is your proposed plan for that chain link fence?
The plan is to remove the chain link fence, and I'm glad you mentioned this because the reason that it is 3 feet closer to the house is because there are some trees there that we would like to not have to destroy and remove as we put in the fence, and that won't interfere with their height. So there will still be some landscaping in front of the fence there.
Okay. All right. Thank you. No other questions.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions based on that, Mr. Shekels?
None.
Mr. Sion?
No, thank you.
Mr. Halpin?
No questions.
Okay, none for me either. I think we probably don't have any other questions. Is there a motion to close the public testimony portion of the hearing?
This is Cyan, so moved.
Second, Haber.
Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Shekels,
Aye.
Mr. Haber,
Aye.
Mr. Sion,
Aye.
Mr. Halpin,
Aye.
and Mr. Nye.
Aye. Okay, that concludes agenda item number 3. Agenda item number 4 is discussion of case 9. Would anyone like to volunteer to start off our discussion?
Haber here. Mr. Chair, I am in favor of granting this variance. And let me cite 2 cases that I believe we've had that address this. And I do not remember the case numbers, but the most recent one was 6465 Stirrup Road. And that was the corner lot where Bartles came up and intersected to Newtown Road. And the appellant was requesting a fence in their rear yard and side yard because of the traffic access as it was coming up Bartles and intersecting into Newtown Road. So we did grant that one. And I think it was a 6-foot fence as well that we allowed in the side yard, if I recollect that correctly. The other case that I apologize for not knowing these case numbers, but the other one is a similar lot that is located, I believe, at 1190 Coral Sea Drive. And Coral Sea Drive is at the end of a cul-de-sac that backs up on Beachmont Avenue. And if you know where the ward, I think it's the ward at like 7320 or something, Beachmont Avenue, the ward travel agency, is that we did allow a similar situation, a privacy fence in the rear yard that I believe was 6 feet height as well. So we've had a number of these cases where we have granted variances for fences to be located in these, especially that last one, 1190 Coral Sea, similar situation where we granted a variance to allow a fence to be located within the rear yard. And so I'm citing those 2 as being precedent for us to grant this variance. I'm in favor of it. With the construction of the development across Woodruff, where we've got headlights coming out of that development, I think granting this variance is the right thing to do. And we've had testimony from neighboring property owners in support of it. So I'm in favor of it.
Can I speak?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, I wrestled with this one quite a bit. You know, this double front yard is been a struggle for me since I joined the BZA. Okay. And I would normally not support this, but in this case I would. And the reason I would, because of all the additional traffic coming from, what is that, Sandalwood? Particularly in the evenings, shining the lights. I wouldn't want to make a blanket exception, is what I'm saying, to this situation. But the headlights of all the traffic that's coming in and out of that cross behind them, I think, in my mind, justifies the 6-foot fence in that situation.
We appreciate that. Mr. Sion, do you want to add anything?
I have no additional comments, but I'm in favor of approving the variance and echo the comments of Mr. Haber.
Mr. Halpin?
I'm in favor of it. No questions, no comments.
Okay, I think the thing that I am also in favor. I think Mr. Haber pointed out 2 recent cases that were similar. I think I can sort of add a third, which is, I think, on Anderson Manor, which is one of those little side streets off of Hunley. It's a little bit different, but we did approve a fence that kind of runs along Hunley, as I recall. Again, not quite the same. Sort of, it's on off Hunley, sort of between Wolf Angle or Lawyer and like 5 Mile Trail there. I don't want to get too hung up on precedent. Every property should kind of stand on its own. In this particular instance, the things that make this stand out are the unusual sandwiching arrangement between Pickwick and Woodruff. I think having Sandcur Lane directly across there, shining lights as people come to that stop sign, especially if they're turning left onto Woodruff, I think is pretty compelling. I think the fact that the house on the corner there in the new development, the fact that it does not face the second front yard of 752 is important. If that house had been turned 90 degrees, I probably would feel a little bit differently about it, or maybe not enough to change my vote, but that would certainly cause me a little more concern. The sidewalk does end right before you get to this property, so there's not people walking by there kind of in the shadow of this fence. I guess the sun would be on the other side. It would literally be in the shadow, but the figurative shadow of the fence. I think for those reasons, also with the neighboring fence already in place, and to the west there are those trees. But then also Woodruff goes downhill as you go to the west. You get to a little, I don't know if it's a creek or what down there. There's some guardrails along the side of the fence. That's kind of a natural demarcation point too. So you might see the fence as appropriate for a couple houses in that direction if necessary, maybe. But I think you also would have a principled way to not extend it all the way down Woodruff. So I think while it is unusual because it is a front yard, listen, everyone knows this is really a backyard. And so for that reason, it's really, I think, not that substantial in this particular location. I don't think it adversely affects the character of the neighborhood and so on. I'd like to thank the applicant for a very good presentation. I appreciate that, and so I'm in favor of granting it for all those reasons. If anyone would like to add anything, they're certainly welcome to, but I think we're all in favor, so if anyone cares to make a motion, I think we could do that.
Hey, Mr. Chair, I move that we grant a variance request to allow a 6-foot high wooden privacy fence at 752 Pickwick Drive. In that, and the reasons for that is that the variance is not substantial. The improvements to the property will yield a reasonable return. Due to the adjacent fences, privacy fences, the essential character of the neighborhood is not going to be substantially altered. Certainly not going to adversely affect delivery of governmental services. And I think the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance.
I'll sign.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. We've got some seconds. Before we do that, Mr. Haber, I assume that you're going to ask the fence to be built in conformance with the plans dated May 3rd, 2021.
Yes,
construction to be started within 1 year of the approval date and completed within 2.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the friendly amendment. And I would also like to condition it. I would also like to condition it that the existing chain link fence is removed completely.
Okay, we've got a motion. I know we had a second before, but do we have a second with those additional friendly amendments?
I'll second again.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Shekels,
Aye.
Mr. Sion,
Aye.
Mr. Haber,
Aye.
Mr. Halpin. Mr. Nye.
Aye. Okay, that concludes agenda item number 4. To anyone who is on for this case, we will journalize that, reduce it to writing a little later in the meeting. You are welcome to stick around for that. You do not need to. Okay, we're on to agenda item number 5, which is consideration of case 10-2021. Let's see. I think I saw the applicant here. Is it Mark Bredemeyer? Is that Bredemeyer?
Yes, sir. It's Mark Bredemeyer with KBA Architects.
All right, sit tight for 1 minute. I didn't want to start this if you weren't here, but thank you for letting me know. Okay, so this is a consideration of case 10-2021 BZA, which is a conditional use and variance request for parking improvements for the Anderson Recplex at 6915, 6910, 6915 Beachmont, 6910 Salem. Will the staff please present case 10?
Thank you, Mr. Nye. This is PJ Genty. So before you this evening is case number 10-2021 BZA. Again, Mark Bredemeyer on behalf of Anderson Township Board of Trustees and Anderson Park District, who are the property owners. The existing zoning on the property is C residence. So the request is a conditional use as well as a variance request to expand the existing parking lot area for the Anderson Recplex. And staff has classified that as a recreation center internal. A portion of the expanded parking lot area is proposed to be located on the Beach Acres Park parcel, which is owned by the Anderson Park District. The overall site does function as one premise. Community recreation facilities, as defined in Article 6.1 of the zoning resolution, are permitted conditional use in single-family zoning district per Article 5.4 I-14E of the zoning resolution. Article 6.1 of the zoning resolution does not define recreation center internal, and staff is of the opinion that recreation public community facility can be used to define the existing use of the property. The definition of a recreation public community facility is as follows. A building or facility operated by a governmental agency for a social recreational purpose, but not as a commercial activity, includes but is not limited to athletic fields, golf courses, swim, tennis facilities, parks, playgrounds, wildlife reservations, forest, senior centers, and recreation centers. The applicant is also requesting a variance for a parking area setback of 36.86 feet, where 100 feet is required. That's per Article 5.4 I-14E of the zoning resolution. So the applicant is proposing a parking lot expansion, new lighting, and interior parking lot landscaping to the existing Anderson Recplex facility. The increased parking is to meet the current parking demand for the site, improve traffic flow, and increase site safety without disturbing the open field space to the west of the parking lot. The expanding parking area provides 43 parking spaces in addition to the existing shared parking at Beach Acres Park. The proposal also includes new pedestrian connections, lighting, and required stormwater detention. The building was constructed in 1970 and then purchased by the township in March of 2019. Anderson Township purchased the Recplex facility from Beach Acres Parenting Center, and Anderson Park District leases and operates the facility as a public community recreation facility. The facility was constructed prior to Anderson Township's Conditional Use Standards, which went into place in May of 2007. In August 2020, a zoning certificate was issued for a new monument style sign located near Beachmont Avenue. This is the map of the property that's owned by the township. So down this portion of the site is owned by Anderson Park District, but the portion outlined in red is owned by the township. So from the aerial imagery, you can see the existing entrance off of Beachmont Avenue, and then the entrance to the Recplex facility here in this corner. The proposed parking area is proposed to be located roughly within this section of the property. This is a topography map showing the varying types of topography that are on the property. The area of the proposed parking area is generally flat. This is the proposed site plan showing the 43 parking spaces. It does look like there are a few parking spaces that are existing but just getting new pavement over towards the Anderson Park District property down to the south there. So the applicant has proposed a sidewalk extension from the right-of-way of Beachmont Avenue, and then to the existing parking lot along the existing drive, then up to the front entrance of the building. There are also internal sidewalk connections and crosswalks to safely guide pedestrians to the entrance of the building, and then out to Beachmont Avenue if they're inclined to do so. This is a larger scale site plan. Here's the existing Recplex facility, the existing entrance from Beachmont Avenue. And you can see the proposed slanted parking spaces and the new parking spaces in this area of the property. This is looking towards the south from the entrance drive from Beachmont Avenue. On the left-hand side, this area of the township is zoned for residential use, and there are existing residences behind here as well. On the left-hand side, this is looking towards the southeast as well, showing the existing buffer in the area for the proposed parking area. This is looking directly towards the south. The existing Recplex facility is over here on the right. The entrance is down here in this corner of the building. The applicant has proposed two additional parking spots in this area. It's my understanding that those will be for electric vehicles. This is looking towards the southeast, towards existing residences. As you can see, there is a substantial vegetative screen that consists of mature trees on this area of the property. Again, looking towards the southeast at the existing mature trees that screen this parking area. This is looking towards the northeast, towards the proposed parking area, as well as the existing vegetative screen. All right, staff findings. To authorize by the grant of a special zoning certificate after public hearing, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall make a finding that the proposed conditional use is appropriate in the location that is proposed. The finding shall be based upon the general considerations set forth, as well as designated specific criteria for recreation center internal. Those are contained in Article 5.4. In addition, the applicant is requesting a variance from Condition D of the Conditional Use Standards, for which the findings will be based upon the standards set forth in Article 2.12. So moving into the Conditional Use Findings, the first one is the spirit and intent. The proposed use and development would comply with the spirit and intent of the zoning resolution and with the district purposes by meeting most of the conditional use standards. Additionally, the site was originally developed as part of the Beach Acres Parenting Center in 1970. And again, this was prior to Anderson Township's conditional use standards. So there are non-conforming aspects to the site. No adverse effect is the second standard. The expanded parking lot area would not have an adverse effect upon adjacent property or the public health, safety, and welfare. of the public, since many of the surrounding land uses include institutional and recreational uses, with single-family residences off to the east. The residence to the east will be shielded by the existing vegetative screen consisting of mature trees on the site. The third standard to be considered is the protection of public services. The proposed parking lot expansion and site improvements would respect natural, scenic, and historic features of significant public interest, as the plan includes a new stormwater detention facility, which should improve stormwater runoff from the existing and new parking areas on the property. Further, the proposal provides a sidewalk connection to the front door of the facility to a future sidewalk on Beachmont Avenue across the frontage of the property, and this would be constructed by Anderson Township in the future. This future sidewalk is noted in Anderson Township's Beachmont plan, but is not included as part of this project. Consistent with adopted township plans is the final conditional use standard to be considered. Staff feels as though the conditional use is in accordance with the township's comprehensive plan and zoning resolution. The project is consistent with both the quality of life and land use and development chapters in the 2016 comprehensive plan. Staff felt as though it met the following goals. So residents will maintain a high quality of life that includes diverse parks, open space, green space, and recreation system. Continue to collaborate with the Anderson Township Park District in order to preserve and enhance the excellent community and regional park systems. And Anderson Township will be a well-planned community with a mixture of different kinds of uses, including parks and recreational uses. And these are the specific criteria that Recreation Center internal is required to meet. So the first one is letter D. So this is any structure except for fences, parking area, or storage area shall be set back at least 100 feet from every property line. And the applicant is requesting a variance, and we'll go over those findings on the next slide. The vehicular use of the use area shall be located and designed so to as minimize impact on the neighborhood. While the proposed angle parking spaces adjacent to the driveway are directed towards the neighboring residents to the east, a substantial vegetative screen consisting of mature trees exists along the property line, which would minimize impact on neighboring residences. Staff feels that the applicant has minimized the impact of potential nuisances, so we feel they're in compliance there. Letter N, the architectural design and site layout of the structure and location, nature, and height of any walls, screens, and fences are to be compatible with adjoining land uses and the residential character of the neighborhood. Staff feels that this condition is in compliance. No structural changes are being proposed to the building. The existing vegetative screen will shield the parking area from residences to the east. The next one is O, and this is a boundary buffer of 10 feet with 3.3 canopy trees and 10 shrubs per 100 linear feet. Staff feels that this is in compliance due to the existing vegetative screen on site. Further, the applicant is meeting the requirement for interior landscaping with 1 tree and two shrubs per landscape island. Signage shall be regulated as follows, and this is 1 sign permitted, subject to sign standards in Article 5.5. This is in compliance. They do have an existing freestanding sign that was issued in August of 2020. And then the final standard is S, and the exterior lighting will be in compliance as well. Now moving on to the variance findings, and again, this is for the required setback from the residential properties. Staff believes that the variance would not be substantial. The existing parking area is currently non-conforming with a setback of approximately 76 feet. The site was developed prior to Anderson Township's conditional use standards, and there are non-conforming aspects to this site. The essential character of the neighborhood would not be altered, and adjoining properties would not suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. While the proposed angle parking spaces adjacent to the driveway to the west are directed towards the neighboring residences to the east, a substantial vegetative screen exists along the property line, which would screen the parking area from the neighboring residences. The variance would not adversely affect the delivery of governmental services. The property owner's predicament cannot be feasibly obviated through some method other than a variance. The applicant could relocate the proposed parking area further to the west to be in front of the building. Although the applicant has stated they do not want to disturb this area as it serves as an activity field space for the Recplex facility. In addition, the current parking area is not meeting the required 100-yard setback as the site was developed prior to our conditional use standards. Staff is of the opinion that the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed by granting the variance based on the fact that the site was developed prior to the conditional use standards, which has resulted in non-conforming aspects on the site, the existing vegetative screen on site, and the desire to preserve the active field space to the west. In addition, the proposal would meet the current parking demand for site and includes a sidewalk connection from the front door to a future sidewalk on Beachmont Avenue, as noted in the Beachmont plan, and to be constructed by the township in the future. These are the standards to be considered for the variance request, and I can answer any questions that the board has.
Mr. Shekels, any questions for staff?
None, thank you.
Mr. Sion?
No, thank you.
Mr. Haber?
Sorry, none, thank you.
Mr. Halpin?
No questions, thank you.
None from me either. Okay, thank you. Mr. Briedemeyer, is that right?
That's correct.
Will you please state your name and address for the record?
Mark Briedemeyer, KBA Incorporated Architects, 29 High Street, Milford, Ohio.
And will you please raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, please tell us anything you'd like to tell us.
Well, I want to thank the board for hearing the case this evening and for PJ for presenting it so well. The only things I want to maybe add to the discussion would be a little bit of a background of what the goal was in what we were trying to accomplish here. In meeting with the landlord, who is Anderson Township, and the tenant, who is the Anderson Township Parks, their goals were to improve site circulation. They have a lot of problems on game day where actually there's accidents, people backing into aisles and hitting cars. So improve site circulation and function, thus increasing safety. Obviously, there's a lot of kids that use the facility, and we wanted to increase the safety for those kids being dropped off. We wanted to replace the existing lighting. There's 3 poles at the front of the building, which would be on the west side of our improvements. We're simply replacing those with poles and improving the lighting in that area, the drop-off area. And as possible, increase the number of parking spaces. Now, in increasing the function and circulation of the site and the size of the parking spaces, I think we netted an additional 10 spaces. It's not significant, but it does place those spaces in the front of the building at the drop-off area, and it does make for larger spaces and aisleways to improve safety. Tonight, I'm here to answer any architectural questions you might have or layout questions. We have Tom Newcomb, who is our civil engineer with IBI Group, and we have Mark Magna, who is representing the landlord, Anderson Township, and we have Ken Kushner, who is representing the tenant, who is Anderson Township Park District. And with that, I'll turn it back to you and be happy to field any questions.
Okay, I tell you what, well, I'm not sure if there's a question for you, Mr. Briedemeyer. The other folks you mentioned who are here with us, do they have testimony that they separately want to give, or are they just here to answer questions today?
I think they're here to answer questions, and I'll let them tell me if I'm wrong on that.
is anyone wrong on this? Anyone want to be heard? And if so, I'll think about how we're going to do this. Mr. Newcomb, was it Kushner? I forget who else you mentioned.
Mr. Magno.
Any of you folks want to testify affirmatively or just here to answer questions?
Just answer questions, sir.
I would like to testify.
Who would like to testify?
This is Ken Kushner. I'd like to testify.
Okay, well, why don't we come back to you then? And let me see if anyone has any questions for Mr. Breedemeyer first. Then we'll get to your testimony, and then we'll ask questions of anyone else who might have them. So, Mr. Shekels, do you have any questions for Mr. Breedemeyer?
None at this time.
Mr. Sion?
No, thank you.
Mr. Haber?
None, thank you.
Mr. Halpin?
No questions.
Okay, none for me either. Mr. Kushner, why don't we go to you? We'll take your testimony. Will you please state your name and address for the record?
Ken Kushner, Anderson Park District, 8249 Clough Pike.
And will you raise your right hand to be sworn, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, please tell us anything you'd like to tell us.
Well, I'd like to thank the BZA for this opportunity. Before you is a unique collaboration among 3 governmental entities here in Anderson Township, the school district, Anderson Township government, and the Park District to improve the recplex. And this is one of the last items that is truly needed to improve the recplex and the circulation of the parking in that location. So it is, as you know, PJ really laid this case out, and so did Mr. Breedemeyer. We love that open space in front of the building. We use that for a lot of our activities, not only field activities, but for temporary parking for major events in the community. But that open green space is a key component of being able to use the recplex to its full capacity. So again, thank you for this opportunity, and that's as brief as I can be.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Mr. Shekels, any questions for Mr. Kushner?
Well, probably back one to the architect. I was looking at the plans, and I know we have 2 proposed electric charging stations there, but I didn't see any provision for underground conduits to those spaces. Maybe I just missed them.
Currently, there is a pole right near that space, and the conduits would not be run, or the connection would not be run until they have a provider for that.
So there'll be no future asphalt will be dug up for that.
That is correct. That's
Okay.
actually why those were placed where they were, so we did not have to do that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Sine, any questions for either of our witnesses so far?
No, thank you.
Mr. Haber?
None, thank you.
Mr. Halpin?
No questions.
I guess I do have one question that is probably for Mr. Breedemeyer after all. I know we heard that there is existing, mature trees, over on, I guess, the east kind of side of the property. The plan is to maintain all of those trees. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Does the board have any other questions at all that we might need to swear some of these other folks for? Okay. Hearing none, why don't, let's see. Is there anyone else on the line who would like to speak in support of the application in case 10 for the Replex? Anyone else in the line? I'm looking at my list here. I don't think I see anyone else in the line. I think it's just us at this point. Anyone else in the line who'd like to be heard in support of case 10? Hearing none, is there anyone on the line who would like to be heard in opposition to the application in case 10-2021? This is parking at the Anderson Recplex.
Mr. Knight, could I amend one of my comments?
Absolutely not. Yes, go ahead.
You had asked about the trees. We do have 2 evergreen trees, and they do show up on sheet C101 that will need to be removed to expand the parking lot.
Is that are those number 4 over there?
That's correct.
Okay. But there's still a significant number of trees along the property line there. Is that right?
Absolutely. Those are kind of freestanding outside of the tree line.
Right. Okay.
I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Yep. I
Hey,
appreciate
Mr.
that.
Nye, may I add something to those trees?
Sure.
Yeah, we are going to attempt to actually spade those trees out and replant them on that property line.
Okay. Very good. Does the board have any follow-up questions based on that? Okay, hearing none, I think I need to make one last call for anyone else on the line who'd like to be heard in opposition to the application in case 10. Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to close the public hearing on case 10?
So moved.
Motion, is there a second?
Sion,
I'll second it.
Okay, will the secretary please call the roll?
Sorry about that. Mr. Shekels,
Aye.
Mr. Sion,
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Haber,
Aye.
Mr. Halpin,
Aye.
Mr. Nye.
Aye. Okay, that concludes agenda item number 5. Agenda item number 6 is discussion. Well, agenda item number 6 is journalization, but let's discuss case 10. We've got a conditional use request and a variance request. Does anyone want to start with either of those? Any volunteer?
I'm completely in support of both. And also having parked in the mud in that area on more than one occasion. It's a welcome addition to the township and in the area.
Yep. Anyone else want to weigh in? All right, I'll weigh in.
Here.
Oh, Haber, go ahead, Mr. Haber.
Sure, I'm in agreement with Mr. Shekels. It's a wonderful development. It looks like they've taken care of the neighbors. Whether or not we need to put some kind of a condition that maintains that vegetative screen to the neighbors to the east, we can entertain that. But certainly with that small piece of land between the drive and those neighbors to the east, it makes sense to put the additional parking there so they can have that land area in front of the building for program use. So I'm in agreement with Mr. Shekels, in agreement with granting both.
Okay, appreciate that. Mr. Sion, do you want to weigh in?
I'm in agreement as well. Nothing further to add.
Mr. Haber?
Nothing. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant Mr. Halpin. I apologize. I was looking at Haber and I was thinking about Halpin.
I'm in agreement. I'm okay. And I agree that no.
We do kind of look a little alike here.
Sorry about that, guys.
No worries.
I also am in favor of both granting the conditional use and the variance. I think we should impose the condition of maintaining the existing or similar vegetative screen on the property line. I know they intend to maintain it. You never know what will happen in the future, and I wouldn't want someone to think that they could or should take it out. I think that is probably an important part of the overall picture here. So I would impose that additional condition, but otherwise I would grant both. I think there's broad agreement on that. Someone want to make a motion?
We're here. Mr. Chair, regarding case 10-2021 BZA, for both a conditional use and a variance request for parking improvements at the Anderson Recplex, I move that we grant both the conditional use and variance request. I'm going to cite staff's report as for the reasons for us granting the conditional use and variance request. Conditions include substantial compliance with the drawings as submitted dated May 14th, 2021, that construction be started within 1 year and completed within 2 years. And finally, that the vegetative screen on the property line to the east of the development will be maintained.
Okay, we have a motion. Is
John
there a
Halpin,
second?
I'll second it.
Okay,
John
will the
Halpin, I'll
secretary please
second it.
call- Thank you, Mr. Halpin. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Shekels?
Aye.
Mr. Sion?
Aye.
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye. Okay. That is agenda item number 5. Mr. Friedemeyer, Mr. Kushner, everyone else, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We are still going to journalize this. You're welcome to stick around for that. You do not need to.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our agenda, we have decision and journalization next. Do we want to move back to case 3 before we do any journaling?
Jeff?
Anyone?
Well, I guess as the agenda was adopted, we had that as the last discussion item, but
Well, we're gonna have to journalize something on that, presumably, right?
we are.
Okay.
So yeah, we can do that first then.
Yeah, let's talk about case 3 and then let's do all the journaling all at once. Oh, actually, hold on for a second. I see. Do I see Michelle White has rejoined us? Ms. White is. If you're on the line, is there anything that that we overlooked with respect to your case, or are you just hanging around to see what's going on? You're muted if you're there. Hey, I've got Ms. White on my screen, but I don't hear her. So let's just move on. PJ, you want to tell us about case 3? I know there was this was a case we had last year, and then they revised the plan a little bit.
Yeah, one second. Let me pull up the email. I can just share that. All right, so on Tuesday afternoon, both Brad Bowers and myself received an email from Joel Swisher, who is now the architect over at 2652 Saddleback Drive, and the plans have been revised. So this was approved back on February 6, 2020. So they're asking for an extension of the condition that construction shall be started within 1 year of the decision date. That has not happened. And obviously there have been circumstances preventing the start of the construction, increase in cost estimate, and then as well during the COVID-19 pandemic, the price of materials has gone up. So they are requesting an extension of the variance for case 3 2020 BZA. That way they would not have to go through another hearing application or process. So the applicant has stated they would like to start construction this summer, hopefully in July. So that was what was presented to staff, and a request for an extension of the time.
Okay, so the
Let me pull
proposal.
it back up.
So they've narrowed the scope of the renovations. Is that right?
So they have changed what was approved by the board, but not, they've brought it back in closer, so it's a further setback from the property.
So the question
From the property
is,
line.
can we, extend the build time without going through a new variance process because they are only reducing the scope of the project, reducing the scope of the variance needed. Is that right?
That's
what they're
correct.
asking.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, and staff is of the opinion that the board does have that authority.
Okay, Mr. Shekels, any question for staff on this one?
None, thank you.
Mr. Sion?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Haber?
None, thank you.
Mr. Halpin?
No questions.
None from me either. There's nobody else in the line who I think needs to be heard about this. The line looks empty. Okay, I guess I don't know if we had a public hearing. Do we need to close the public hearing? Was that a public hearing on this? I'm not even sure. For safety's sake, should we close the public hearing, I guess?
It wasn't a public hearing. So you're okay. No, you're okay.
All right. Does anybody care to make a motion either way on this? I'll say, I guess we should discuss first. I would be in favor of granting this extension, give them some number of months to start, another year from then to finish, I think.
I'm in favor as long as they're not increasing the footprint.
Anyone else?
I have no objections as well.
Okay. Anyone care to make
In
a
favor.
motion? Nope. I think we're all for it.
Haber here. Mr. Giddy, what is the case number again? 3-2020?
Case 3-2020 or 3-2020.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, regarding case 3-2020, I move that we approve an extension to commence construction for a period of 1 year from the expiration of the original date and completed within 2 years of the original date as granted by the board.
John Halpin, I'll second that.
Before we vote on that, I should have asked this earlier. Presumably the resolution we signed said substantial conformance to the plans dated X. We should amend that to say, not more expansive than the plans dated X, or so long as the construction remains within the footprint of the plans dated X, or something like that. Would that be an appropriate way to handle that, do you guys think? And that's what we're all thinking, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
PJ, are you issuing a new zoning certificate?
We are, yeah, because it's within the footprint of what was approved.
Okay.
So we would just attach the new resolution to that.
Correct.
Okay. So, all right, I think we're all in agreement on what we're voting on here. So let's vote on it, and then we may need to just let's just think about that language that goes into the resolution when we draft it up. But I think we've got a motion and a second. So do we have a second? Was there a second?
Yeah, John seconded.
John,
Yeah, I
okay, so
second
we've
it.
got a motion and a second. Let's call
Yeah.
the roll, please.
Mr. Shekels,
Aye.
Mr. Sion,
Aye.
Mr. Haber,
Aye.
Mr. Halpin,
Aye.
sorry, Mr. Nye.
Aye. Okay, that completes all of our cases. We just need to journalize a few things now, right?
Correct. So let me start with case 8-2021 BZA, and this was reviewed by our township attorney, and we have updated it based on his revisions.
Okay. I'm good.
Same here.
Was it the visibility to Rowanta? What was the cross street? That was where it was really visible, right? Blue Orchard in number 4. Am I remembering that right? Because it runs perpendicular to Rowanta. It runs parallel to Blue Orchard.
So I know that was the finding in the staff report, because it had to do with the topography of
Oh, right.
the front yard of Rowanta. You could see up.
I see. Okay, you're right. That's right. Okay, I'm good with that.
Motion to approve case number 8-2021 BZA.
Mr. Chair, I have not had anything come up on my screen. I've got a dialogue that says Anderson Township is starting to share content, but the contents never come up. I mean, based on your review of it.
Could everyone else see it? I could see it.
I could see it.
Yeah, I can see it.
Dang. My point being is that for expediency here tonight, based on your review of it, I feel capable of voting on it.
Okay, I've approved it. You could also abstain, I think, if you care to. There are enough votes, I think, to carry whatever the motion is anyway, probably. But if you're comfortable going ahead, then I would say let's go ahead.
So you have no problem with me voting and not abstaining?
I'll tell you what, why don't, PJ, when you scroll back up, I will briefly run through and I won't read the whole thing, but I'll tell you what it says. And okay, the matter was heard on May 6th upon a request for a variance at 7383 Rowanta for an 8-foot-high privacy fence. Being fully advised from the evidence adduced at the hearing, the board determines the variance would be contrary to the public interest, health, and safety for the following reasons. 1, the variance is substantial. It's an 8-foot-high fence, which is 2 feet higher than the permitted fence. 2, the essential character of the neighborhood will be altered and adjoining properties will suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. Again, because it's an 8-foot high fence located on the property line with no setback, visible from Rowanta and higher due to the grade. 3, the owner's predicament can be feasibly obviated through some method other than a variance. Could build a 6-foot high privacy fence on the property line or could install a vegetative screen, both of which would be in compliance. And 4, the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would not be observed by granting the variance based on the height of the proposed fence, the setback of the proposed fence to the neighboring property line, which is to say the lack of a setback, and the visibility of the proposed fence to Rowanta. And so the variance is hereby denied.
Thank you.
I'm good with all that.
Thank you.
All right. Does someone who can see it maybe want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion for the matter of case -8-2021 BZA and move that we approve and journalize.
A motion, is there a second?
John Halpin will second that motion.
You call the roll, please.
Mr. Shekels,
Aye.
Mr. Sion,
Aye.
Mr. Haber,
Aye.
Mr. Halpin,
Aye.
Mr. Nye.
Aye. All right. That's case 8. Now to case 9.
Sarah, do you have access to the files?
Yeah.
Are you able to go then to case 10 while I prepare the resolution for case 9?
Give me 1 second. You said case 10?
Right, yeah, I have that one prepared.
Oh, I see it now. I understand. Okay. Give me 1 second here to share my screen.
Thank you.
Is that visible?
I can see that case
Yeah.
10.
Yes.
Haber, I can see it.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Just let me know when you want me to scroll.
All right, I'm good.
So good.
I'm ready.
The space between will and comply in number 1.
Okay.
Hold on a sec. Do we want to say in number 1, meeting most of the conditional use standard? I think it meets all of them, and I think it has to meet all, doesn't it?
Yes.
What are we thinking there?
Well, it wasn't because of it didn't because of the variance, but the variance was approved.
I see. Okay.
So I think I'm not sure how we leave that.
No, that's fine. You're right. Don't overthink it. Yeah, I'm good.
Ready?
Ready.
Line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The proposal provides a sidewalk connection to the front door of the facility.
Yeah. Just in the word "to."
Okay. The proposal provides a sidewalk connection
2.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
So far, so good.
Everybody ready?
Yes.
With respect to D, instead of saying variance findings are below, should we say
I almost think it should be the applicant has been granted.
yeah,
right?
Yes. That's the thought I'm trying to figure out how to, you know.
And then we can just say,
Yeah.
we can just say that the variance is below. Or
See below.
What?
Findings for variance are
variance approval below.
B.
Any opinions on that?
Well, I write weird though. I would after required, I would put a semicolon and I would say see below.
We are good with that. Do we want to get rid of this in compliance?
So what did we say about that? They are maintaining the vegetative screen. They there's a retention, new water retention aspect to it. I guess that's not noise and dust and so on. I don't know. In compliance works. Or we could say, the variance includes maintenance of the vegetative screen, which keeps out noise and dust. Don't know if it keeps out vibration, but
No.
Just leave it.
I just go back to H, and didn't we talk about that vegetative screen will be maintained as well?
I think what we said is that it was going to be a condition of the variance.
Okay, all right.
I'm fine with everything on the screen so far.
Yeah, same here.
Should that be mature trees exist or exists?
Exist. Trees exist. No, a vegetative screen exists.
I mean, should the S be gone? Exists. The trees exist along the.
Forget mature trees. The subject is vegetative screen, which requires the S on exists. A substantial vegetative screen exists. I'm good with all this.
Yep.
Looks good to me.
I'm here.
With 1 through 3, but I think maybe let's reword 4 a little bit. The applicant cannot relocate the proposed parking area to the west because doing so would prevent it from being used as an activity field.
Okay, so the applicant cannot relocate the proposed parking area further west to be in front of the building.
Because doing so
as to not disturb. Hey, Scott, would you mind muting?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're okay.
Yeah, just say, you just, as it serves, the comma, then as it serves an activity field.
Yeah, take out everything up to the as. Yeah.
Great.
I'm good so far.
Yep.
I'm good with all that. Are there more on the next page? So the only thing missing from those conditions is maintenance of the vegetative screen.
Well, we have the landscape plan, so it just should, that should include the maintenance of the existing.
The landscaping plan would be in compliance with Article 5.4. So you calling out the vegetative screening to the west would just kind of, or is it to the east or to the west?
East.
Would provide
Okay.
additional support off that one.
Shall be maintained, yeah.
I'm good with all that.
Yep. Mr. Chair, regarding case 10-2021 BZA, I move that we approve and journal our decision.
Second the motion.
A motion and a second. Will you please call the roll?
I'm sorry, who's second?
Sion.
Thank you. Mr. Seckles?
Aye.
Mr. Sion?
Aye.
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye. All right. What we got next?
We're back to case 9.
9.
All right. So bear with me. This is probably going to be a little bit rough grammatically, but I wanted to try and get all the thoughts in.
I would probably take out point 1. I think, it certainly affects the return on the property. It doesn't, yeah. Double frontage lot. Yeah, rear yard. Is there an E in usable? Or are there 2 E's in usable? Okay. It didn't have the little red line under it, but it didn't look
I
right.
know, maybe it's an either or thing.
Oh, man. I think with respect to one, well, hold on, maybe let me read two. Maybe this is captured there. Yeah, okay, it's captured in two.
That second to last sentence, just have an existing.
Yeah. So I spell existing right too, that'll help.
Yeah.
In two, in one, should we mention the traffic lights from Sandaker or not as a reason? Just looking forward to future cases.
Wait, did I mention that up here? Okay, I put located near the intersection of Sanker Lane and Woodruff Road.
Right.
So I can put the negative impacts of it here too.
Okay.
What were the ones that the board wanted to include? I had lights.
The headlights for cars.
The lights from Sandaker Lane onto the property. And it wouldn't be like from entering, but to be exiting only.
Well, if they were entering in reverse.
Yeah, that's true. I do that a lot sometimes. Shine directly onto the house or something to that effect.
I capture it.
Yeah,
looks good.
So.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything more down there?
What about conditions?
Yeah,
Oh,
we had two.
Oh yeah, geez, yeah.
Well, we had
the existing
conformance
fence would come down at the construction, and the construction would be whatever shown on that plan. The location of the fence would be shown on that plan.
right.
Give me 1 second. Let me make sure I get the language right.
Yeah.
We want to say that the existing chain link fence will be removed, and the new fence will be installed as per the provided drawing. The owner provided drawing.
Plans are May 3rd.
Right.
Yeah.
Then, sorry, what was the existing chain link fence shall be removed?
Moved upon construction of the new fence.
And number two, do we really have something complete within 3 years?
I was just copy paste.
That's a heck of a fence.
Yeah, I just want to get that top language right. Yeah. Oh wait, I didn't even need to do that. There we go. Will be removed upon completion, upon starting construction
of the new installation.
Yeah.
That
looks good.
good to me.
Yep.
All right, do we have a motion?
Weber here. Mr. Chair, regarding case 9-2021 BZA, I move that we approve and journal our decision.
This is Cyan. I second.
John Howell.
The race to the second. We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Shekels,
Aye.
Mr. Cyan.
Aye.
Mr. Haber,
Aye.
Mr. Halpin,
Aye.
Mr. Nye.
Aye. All right, that just leaves case 3-2020, right?
Let me see if I could find, I want to make sure I get this part right. Sarah, do you remember if there's like some sort of language that,
For which one?
well, for
time
amending the,
extension?
yeah, let me pull, I know we had a few last year.
One of the
So-
last BZA cases I did was a time extension.
So I have one from December 3rd, 2020. Okay, so yeah, we just put that we talked about it on this date. Okay. And then just amend the condition. Okay. All right, is everyone able to see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Haber, no.
Can somebody
Go ahead.
have a better screen?
I'll be glad to abstain.
So now we just need to change the,
Within-
so what did the board want to do with this one?
We said that 2 years from the original, or however you want to word that, 2 years from the original proposal.
Let me just stick a date with it.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, I deleted it. Lovely. Oh, there it is, February 6th.
Shall be started within two years. There you go.
Oh, we started with, oh, okay.
Within 2 years. And completed within 3 years.
And just tie it all back to still February 6th, 2020.
Yeah.
Okay.
You might want to say on the date of this original decision.
How's that?
Yeah.
You just need a space between the 6 and the 2020 there at the beginning. That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, the other one.
Not there.
My bad.
That doesn't read right now. It's
Construction shall be started within 2 years and complete within 3 years from February 6th, 2020.
the date.
Yeah, what do we need?
It's just say the date of the original decision,
Which is the date?
which was February 6th, 2020 was the date of the original decision. We need to tell them why we're putting it to that date. February 6th, 2020, the date of, no, after February 6th, after 2020, the date of the original decision.
Oh. All right, how's that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Wait, Sarah, do we need to update the date on this too? Since they're making it smaller?
Did they submit a new plan?
Well, no,
Probably
they,
through email, but we don't have an approved zoning certificate.
right. Conditional on approved zoning certificate, and you could say that the building, footprint will not exceed the original.
Okay. Be obtained.
Yeah. The
Then-
footprint of the addition shall not exceed the original.
Okay.
All right.
Does that work for everybody?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, great.
Let's go back to that for a second. Something's not right there. Go up. Up a little more. What's right before 1, 2, 3, 4? Okay. Granted subject to the following conditions. Okay, let me see 1, 2, 3, 4 again.
Yeah. See, down number 1, you need to take out. Yeah.
Right, delete number 1. Yeah. Now it makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay,
Now
that looks
look.
right to me.
Yeah.
Okay, Steve, you want us to read this to you?
No, I've heard all your comments
Okay. All right,
and
do we have a
concur.
motion?
Approve case 3-2020 BZA as amended. Approve and journalize.
Tabor, second.
All right, PJ, what are you still doing there?
Saving his hard work.
All right.
Yeah, making sure
All
it's
right, let's
safe.
call the roll. All right, my dogs are barking. Grief.
Yeah, you're sharing your WebEx screen.
Ah, that'll work.
Yeah, okay, we had a motion and a second. Are we
We
ready
did.
for roll?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Shekels,
Aye.
Mr. Sion,
Aye.
Mr. Haber,
Aye.
Mr. Halpin,
Aye.
Mr. Nye.
Aye. Okay, I think that concludes our agenda. Next meeting is July 1st, is that right?
Yep.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, if anything's
Scheduled to
any
be in
applications
person.
It'll be in person. Do we have any cases yet? Do we know?
I know we have two outstanding ones out, but waiting for them to submit.
Okay. All right. Well, I very much hope to see you all on July 1st. That'll be fun.
Yes.
Thanks for
Okay.
having me again, guys.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for coming. See ya.
You're welcome to come
Sarah.
back. It's just fun.
All right. We're adjourned.
All right. Thank
All
you.
right, thanks, everyone.
Fun.
Have a good night.
Good job, Jeff.
Thanks again.